Hi friends, welcome to the channel The Nurse. Here we are discussing about latest nursing questions and answers. It will be helpful for those who are preparing for AIIMS Patna, Kerala PSC, DME staff nurse exam, etc. So we will go to our topic, latest nursing questions and answers. Before going to the topic, if you are not subscribed to our channel, please subscribe. So we will move to our topic. Latest nursing questions and answers that will be helpful for preparing Kerala PSC AIIMS Patna Nursing Officer exam. So first question, in which of the following cases would oral temperature be contraindicated? In which of the following cases would oral temperature be contraindicated? Patient had oral surgery, patient with a history of epilepsy, patients experiencing shaking chill, all of this. Correct answer is all of this. In all three conditions, oral temperature is contraindicated. Patient had oral surgery means in that condition also it is not possible to keep a thermometer inside the mouth, and if there is history of seizure or during history of epilepsy means there is a high risk for uh, biting the thermometer. So that in that case also oral temperature is contraindicated. Then third case is patient experiencing shaking chills. In that case, the patient cannot hold the thermometer below the tongue. So these three cases contraindicated for taking oral temperature. So here correct answer is all of these. Next question. Due to increased intestinal iron absorption and deposition in organs including the skin, causing generalized slate gray skin pigmentation. This condition is known as due to increased intestinal iron absorption and deposition in organs, that is including the skin, causing generalized slate gray skin pigmentation. So this condition is known as anemia, brown baby syndrome, gray baby syndrome, hemochromatosis. It is a direct question asking the definition. So correct answer is option D, that is hemochromatosis. Hemochromatosis means that is the iron deposition in the skin and other organs, that is due to increased intestinal iron absorption and deposition, that will cause generalized slate gray skin pigmentation. So that is known as hemochromatosis. Third question, which of the following parameters is the major determinant of diastolic blood pressure? Which of the following parameter is the major determinant of diastolic blood pressure? So diastolic blood pressure, diastolic is important. Options: baroreceptors, cardiac output, renal function, vascular resistance. So important determinant of diastolic blood pressure, that is vascular resistance. Option D, vascular resistance. But in the case of systolic blood pressure determinants, that is cardiac output. In the case of systolic blood pressure determinant, if it is asked means correct answer will be cardiac output. But in the question, the major determinant of diastolic blood pressure. Diastolic blood pressure is determined by vascular resistance. Vascular resistance means it is the resistance in the blood flow through the arterioles. Resistance in the blood vessels, that is mainly in the arterioles, that is known as vascular resistance. Fourth question, baroreceptors in the carotid artery walls and aorta respond to which of the following condition? Baroreceptors in the carotid artery walls and aorta respond to which of the following condition? Changes in blood pressure, changes in arterial oxygen, changes in arterial carbon dioxide, changes in heart rate. Correct answer, that is changes in the blood pressure. Baroreceptors in the carotid artery walls and aorta respond to changes in blood pressure. And decreases in pulsatile pressure or decrease in the blood pressure, that will cause a reflex that will increase the heart rate. In the same time, chemoreceptors. So in question we are discussed about baroreceptors, but another term is chemoreceptors. Chemoreceptors in the medulla are primarily stimulated by carbon dioxide. That is changes in arterial carbon dioxide. But chemoreceptors in the peripheral region in the means aorta and carotid artery, that will stimulated by changes in arterial oxygen. So I think it is clear. Chemoreceptors in the medulla oblongata, that is primarily stimulated by changes in the arterial carbon dioxide, but chemoreceptors in the peripheral region, that is aorta and carotid arteries, that will be stimulated by changes in arterial oxygen. So here we studied three things: baroreceptors, and baroreceptors are influenced by changes in blood pressure. Then the peripheral chemoreceptors affecting arterial oxygen, but uh, chemoreceptors in the medulla, that is stimulated by arterial carbon dioxide. Fifth question, which of the following terms describes the force against which the ventricle must expel blood? Which of the following terms describes the force against which the ventricle must expel blood? Options: afterload, cardiac output, overload, preload. The force against which the ventricle must expel blood. The correct term is option A, that is afterload. The force against which ventricle must expel blood, that is afterload. Cardiac output means, you know that one, that is amount of blood expelled from the heart per minute. Amount of blood expelled from the heart per minute. Stroke volume means the amount of blood expelled from the heart during the each contraction. So cardiac output means the amount of blood expelled from the heart per minute. Stroke volume means each contraction, the amount of blood expelled from the heart in each contraction, that is stroke volume. Stroke volume multiplied by heart rate, that is cardiac output. Overload means excess blood volume. Excess blood volume means that that case we will tell overload. The same time preload means the volume of the blood in the ventricle at the end of diastole. Diastole means that is a relaxed state of heart. So at the relaxed state of heart, how much volume is there in the ventricle, that is known as preload. Systole means the contracted state of heart. So diastole, preload means the amount of blood in the end of the diastole. Afterload means the force against which the ventricle must expel blood. Sixth question, which age group has the greatest potential to demonstrate regression when they are sick? Which age group has the greatest potential to demonstrate regression when they are sick? Adolescent group, young adult group, infant group, toddler group. Regression means you know that that is a defense mechanism. In that mechanism, the person will go to the underdeveloped state. Underdeveloped state means that is the childhood state. That is what regression. Any stress is there means they will escape from the stress, like they will go to the underdeveloped stages. So the greatest potential to demonstrate regression is that is in the infant group. Infant group are the group has the greatest potential to demonstrate regression when they are sick. If they get got any disease or illness, means they will go to the regression state. The regression means underdeveloped state. They will continuously, they will cry, they will they need the mother's care, like that. They will show the regression defense mechanism. But it will be there for a toddler, young adult, adolescent, even in a adult person also. But it will be greatest level that is shown in infant. Children generally double their birth weight by 5 months of age. This is an example of children generally double their birth weight by 5 months of age. This is an example of heredity, development, state of health, physical growth. Correct answer option D. The children generally their double their birth weight in 5 months. That is example of physical growth. In the same time, development means that is a process of growing and maturation. Development means the process of growing and maturation. In that, there will be social development and mental development, emotional development, psychological development. Everything will include. So development means the process of growing and maturation. Physical growth means the increase the size. Next question. The nurse is monitoring the client's laboratory values. Which laboratory report is diagnostic for a urinary tract infection or UTI? The nurse is monitoring the client's laboratory values. Which laboratory report is diagnostic for a urinary tract infection? Hemogram, urinalysis, urine culture, metanephrines. So which diagnostic investigation will be helpful for diagnosing urinary tract infections? The specific diagnostic investigation is urine culture. Urine culture gives specifically that is for diagnosing urinary tract infection. If urine culture positive means there is a presence of microorganisms, so that is indicates urinary tract infection. Urinary culture is negative means there is absence of microorganism, so that is there is no urinary tract infection. So urine culture is a specific test that is used for diagnosing urinary tract infection. In urine analysis also will give a vague idea, unclear idea about urinary tract infection, but it is not a specific test. Urine culture is a specific test. Next question. The nurse in the emergency room is taking care of a 4-year-old patient who has a suspected case of impetigo. A nurse in the emergency room is taking care of a 4-year-old patient who has a suspected case of impetigo. The nurse knows that which of the following precautions is most important to prevent the spread of this infection. So you need to know what is impetigo, that is a skin infection, and at same time you need to go how to transmit, what is the transmission cycle of this impetigo. Then you can easily answer this question. Options are standard precautions, droplet precautions, airborne precautions, contact precautions. Impetigo is an infectious skin condition that is mainly spread by skin to hand contact or indirect contact of the skin and other surfaces. So here best preventive measures is contact precautions. The nurse should take contact precautions to prevent the spread of impetigo. It is a skin infection. It is spreading through direct contact with the hand contact or indirect contact of the skin and other surfaces, that may be bed sheet or anything. So nurse should take contact precautions to prevent this kind of uh, infections like impetigo. 10th question. The presence of one very painful localized spot on palpation that is seen in glomus tumor is known as. The presence of one very painful localized spot on palpation seen in the glomus tumor is known as wrist sign, thumb sign, love sign, marvel sign. So here one of the example, it may occur anywhere. So here it is seen in thumb. The presence of one very painful localized spot on palpation seen in glomus tumor, that is known as love sign. Love sign. It can seen anywhere, but the painful spot that seen in glomus tumor is known as love sign. Next question. A client with cancer develops xerostomia. The nurse can help the patient to alleviate the discomfort associated with the xerostomia by offering hard candy, administering analgesic medications, splinting swollen joints, providing saliva substitute. If you know what is xerostomia means, you can answer here easily. Xerostomia means it is a dry mouth, and the nurse can help the patient by giving saliva substitute. So correct answer is option D, providing saliva substitute. If the client has xerostomia, the nurse can help alleviating the discomfort associated with the xerostomia by providing saliva substitute. Offering a candy, that may again leads to more discomfort, and it may leads to cracks in the lips and tongue. So it will not be useful. Administering analgesic medication also not useful and not alleviate the associated discomforts. Splint in swollen joints is not recommended in the case of xerostomia. 12th question. An obstetrical client decides to have an epidural anesthetic to relieve pain during labor. Following administration of epidural anesthesia, the nurse should. An obstetrical client decide to have an epidural anesthetic to relieve pain during labor. Following administration of anesthesia, the nurse should monitor the clients for seizures, monitor the clients for orthostatic hypotension, monitor the client for respiratory depression, monitor the client for hematuria. Epidural anesthesia means injecting an anesthetic agent into the epidural space. So in that case, there is a increased risk for respiratory depression if the epidural anesthesia medicine reaches the respiratory center. So the nurse should monitor the client for respiratory depression. Seizure usually will not occur with any epidural anesthesia, and orthostatic hypotension are not used here because the patient is already in epidural anesthesia, and in that case patient will not allowed to stand. Then hematuria also will not occur with epidural anesthesia. So then should monitor the client for respiratory depression after giving epidural anesthesia. 13th question. The client has a prescription for a calcium carbonate compound to neutralize stomach acid. The nurse should assess the client for The client has prescription for a calcium carbonate compound to neutralize stomach acid. The nurse should assess the client for constipation, hyperphosphatemia, hypomagnesemia, diarrhea. So correct answer is option A, constipation. The main side effect of calcium components or calcium carbonate is constipation. So the nurse should assess the bowel movement regularly. 14th question. The nurse is assessing the abdomen. The nurse knows best sequence to perform the assessment is. The nurse is assessing the abdomen. The nurse knows the best sequence to perform the assessment is inspection, then auscultation, then palpation, auscultation, then palpation, then inspection, palpation, then inspection followed by auscultation, first inspection, then palpation followed by auscultation. So here correct answer is inspection, auscultation, palpation. The correct sequence of abdominal assessment, that is starting from inspection, then auscultation. If you are doing percussion, third one is percussion, then last one is palpation. Otherwise, if we are doing palpation first, means that may cause increased bowel movement or some abnormal reading while auscultation, or it will give false reading by in further examination. So that is by first inspection, that is observation, then auscultation. The auscultation means by hearing the sounds, bowel sounds with the stethoscope. Palpation last only with the hands. It may cause abdominal muscle contraction. While doing palpation, it may cause abdominal muscle contraction if there is pain. So that is why palpation is keeping last. Last question. Lidocaine is a medication frequently ordered for the client experiencing. Lidocaine is a medication frequently ordered for a client experiencing atrial tachycardia, ventricular tachycardia, heart block, ventricular bradycardia. Correct answer option B, that is ventricular tachycardia. Ventricular tachycardia, drug of choice is lidocaine. So in that case, this lidocaine helps to exerts an antiarrhythmic effects by increasing the electric stimulation threshold of the ventricle without depressing force of ventricular contraction. Lidocaine is used to treat ventricular tachycardia. This medication slowly exerts an antiarrhythmic effects by increasing the electric stimulation threshold. Means if electric stimulation threshold means the charge of electrical charge, how much it is needed in a normal condition, that level will increases. So during the ventricular tachycardia, all the electrical impulses coming from the SA node or AV node cannot give the contraction, because the medicines increased the electrical stimulation threshold. So in that case, the heart rate will gradually reduces. So the medication slowly exerts an antiarrhythmic effect by increasing the electric stimulation threshold of the ventricle without depressing the force of ventricular contraction. So that is the pharmacological dynamics of lidocaine. So that is about today's video. So thank you for watching this video. If you have any doubt, you can ask in comment section. So I will clear your doubts. If you are first time watching this video, please subscribe our channel, The Nurse. So thank you.